Hey guys, let's talk a little bit about some breathing exercises you can do to help you sleep. Now, before we talk about that, I want to talk a little bit about how your breathing is related to your stress. So people who are stressed out will tend to have these shorter breaths. And this can happen in a couple different ways. So one is you could be a mouth breather. So mouth breathers will always have a chronic stressed out response. And the reason is that they're always going to be taking shorter, shallower breaths. Now, how does that cause you to be stressed out? Well, the reason is people who are mouth breathers, since they're only using their mouth to breathe, they'll take these shorter, quicker breaths. And in doing so, they'll only use the upper half of their lungs and the upper half of their chest to breathe. They'll never use their lungs' whole capacity. Now, the problem with this is this will stimulate your sympathetic nervous system because the upper half of your chest, when you're only using that, that's what triggers that stress response in your body. Now, if you don't remember from biology class or psychology class what your sympathetic nervous system is, this is your body's fight or flight response. So mouth breathers will tend to be in this stressed out response a lot of the time, and that's how you get this chronic stress for people who are mouth breathers. Now, what else happens when you're just using the upper half of your chest to breathe and you're just taking these shallower breaths? Well, over time, your body's going to be releasing more and more carbon dioxide. And the reason is when you breathe in oxygen, but when you exhale, you release carbon dioxide. So when you're taking these quicker breaths, you're releasing carbon dioxide really, really quickly. And you're also not giving that carbon dioxide much time to build up in your body. Now you might be wondering, like, what's the big deal? Because we're getting rid of CO2, but we're still getting oxygen, right? CO2 is just a waste. Well, that's actually not the case. We need CO2 just as much as we need oxygen. Without having CO2 in our body, our oxygen is useless. We need our CO2 to help deliver our oxygen to the right places. Otherwise, our oxygen is just going to be sitting around useless in our body. And studies even show that people who are mouth breathers are more likely to have hypoxia, or lower levels of oxygen in their body. So human beings were meant to be nose breathers, not mouth breathers. Now you might be wondering, like, how is this even possible? What if I always have these allergies or a stuffy nose all the time? It's impossible for me to breathe through my nose. Well, luckily for you, I made another video on how you can start breathing through your nose again if you have a stuffy nose or other problems like that. So I'm putting a link in the description below, so make sure you check that out. Now, other people can have a different reaction to stress. Let's say you're not a mouth breather, but you're still really stressed out about something. Something naturally that a lot of people do when they're stressed out is they breathe in really hard, but they don't breathe out that much. So it'll look kind of something like this. So what happens is they sort of hold their breath. People will start to get this feeling where they just can't catch their breath. The reason this is happening is because you're not exhaling all the way, right? Because in order to catch your breath or to breathe in properly, you need to make room in your lungs and you need to exhale. If you're never fully exhaling, you're never going to be able to breathe in normally. Now, the difference in this scenario is instead of having a lower level of CO2, you're going to have a higher level of CO2. Now, both of these scenarios, whether you have too much or too little CO2, neither of them are going to end well for you. We need to have the right balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in our body. And this balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide is what helps determine our blood's pH. A pH is basically a measurement of how acidic an environment is. So let's say you wanted to make your blood really, really acidic. How could you do that? Well, you could start holding your breath. If you hold your breath for just 30 seconds, you'll start building up more and more CO2 in your body. And in doing so, you'll make your blood more and more acidic. And if you keep this up even longer, you're going to get more and more uncomfortable. And this is when you'll start to see that your heart rate goes up and you start feeling dizzy or lightheaded. And these are some of the symptoms that can happen when you have an excess of CO2 in your body. Now, we can do the same thing the other way around. We can also make our blood more basic or less acidic. And the way to do this is the exact opposite of holding your breath. You start hyperventilating or breathing in and out really, really quickly, kind of like a dog. Most people can't even do this for more than 20 seconds. And even at that point, your oxygen level in your brain is going to drop by about 40%. Now, please do not go trying this at home. So kind of similar to before, if you keep this up, you're going to start feeling more disoriented. And this is why it's so important for our oxygen and our CO2 levels to be in check and for our blood pH to be at a normal level. So what is a normal level for our blood? Well, our blood pH should ideally be between 7.35 and 7.45. So that's a little bit higher than a neutral pH. Now, it's really important for our body to keep our pH at this range because if it gets too high or it gets too low, then our cells in our body can start dying. So people who are stressed out are not going to have a normal blood pH. because their oxygen and their CO2 levels are going to be off. And the reason they're off is because their breathing is not normal, right? Who can breathe normal when they're stressed out? Now, what does this have to do with your sleep? Well, if you're stressed out, there's no way you're going to be able to fall asleep, and there's no way you're going to be able to get quality sleep. So the goal when you're relaxing, and especially when you're about to sleep, is to start slowing your breathing down. The cool thing about breathing is it's both voluntary and involuntary. So if you're not thinking about it, then you're still going to be breathing. But if you're watching this video, then chances are you're probably going to be focusing on it more. Now, what I want you to start doing is to voluntarily take control of your breathing before you're about to sleep. And what you need to start doing is breathing in really slowly and breathing out really slowly. And when you're doing this, you need to be using your nose and your diaphragm. So there's a lot of benefits to breathing through your nose. And I'm not gonna go into all of them in this video. I'm gonna put some other links in the description below where I do go over more details on that. And again, the second thing you wanna focus on is using your diaphragm. And the reason this is important is when you're using your diaphragm when you're breathing is it makes your lungs function a lot more efficiently. Because one, it starts expanding your lungs and it makes sure that you're using your lungs full capacity, and it also helps distribute our air throughout our lungs. So it makes our lungs work a lot more efficiently. And the way to make sure that we're using our diaphragm is to simply start sticking out our belly when we're breathing. So one way you can do this is to put your palm right over your belly button, and when you're breathing in, see if your palm is moving away from your spine. If your belly's getting bigger, that means that you're using your diaphragm. Now when you're breathing, you want to focus on using a 5-second inhale and a 5-second exhale. So it should look something like this. You probably didn't see my belly rising in this video, and it probably didn't look too dramatic, but that's exactly how it should be. It shouldn't be anything too dramatic, it should be more relaxing. So this breathing technique is really similar to a sort of meditation, and this is a great thing to do right before you go to sleep. And if you keep this up even for like 2 or 3 minutes, you'll start to notice that your body gets more and more relaxed, and this can really help you fall asleep. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you liked that video. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel below. I will see you in the next video.